All right, we're rolling. Hi, everyone. Welcome to WiST Presents Discover Sports Tech. Really excited to have Jarvis here today from Nike. But just a little bit of background. Women in Sports Tech is a global nonprofit organization founded just 3 years ago with the mission to drive growth opportunities for women in the sports tech industry and introduce students to the wide and exciting variety of careers in the sports tech business. So WiST Next Gen, our newest initiative, is a new WiST program that inspires young women like all of you to continue the STEAM classes you love and encourage your continued participation in the sports you're passionate about at the same time. We'll introduce you to role models in sports tech careers you've never even heard of before. So I'll have our team do a quick intro. I'm Lydia Hanowich. I work at Catapult Sports, a wearable tech company. Next to me we have Sydney. You want to do a quick intro?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sydney. I'm a student at the University of San Francisco Sport Management Master's Program. I currently work there as the social media specialist, and I am also a 2020 WiST Fellow, where I just wrapped up an internship as a data analyst with Zoom.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shivy. I'm a junior in high school and one of the co-founders of this initiative. Currently, I'm also the founder of this engineering design program called We Engineer Innovation, or We Innovate for short, and I'm also a club and high school softball player. I'm super excited to spread the concept of sports tech, not just to everybody who's viewing this live, but also anyone who might be watching it later on. And I think it's really important to kind of merge the idea of athletics and technology and make sure that people don't think they're on opposite ends of like a spectrum. So I'm excited for all the amazing women and men we have lined up for these webinars to inspire everyone watching.
Yeah, great. Love it. Thanks, Shivy. We're thrilled to have you here, Jarvis. For everyone who doesn't know, Jarvis is the Vice President of Global Diversity and Inclusion at Nike, and he's also a WiST board member. So welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure. It's a pleasure to be connected with the team. This is an area that I'm incredibly passionate about. I've worked in the diversity and inclusion space for over a decade now, positioning different programs, opportunities, and approaches to ensure the advancement of women into technology roles. Understanding that access to STEM and even STEAM education is so critical to driving the right pathways to these conversations. And when you add into that the concept of sports technology, it expands the horizons and offers new avenues. So thrilled to offer some context and conversation today.
Definitely. Great. We'll dive into the questions if you want to start it off, Sydney.
Yeah, thank you again, Jarvis, for being here, and it's nice to see you again. If you don't mind, can you start by introducing yourself and then talking a bit more about the field that you work in and some of the new and cool things that Nike's coming up with in terms of innovation?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Sydney. Great to see you again as well. So, team, in terms of background and experience, as mentioned previously, my name's Jarvis Sam. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. That's where I was born and raised, and then attended undergrad out there at Rice University. I wasn't fortunate enough to study in STEM roles. Math really wasn't my strong suit. So I went to the humanities. So I studied in history, public policy, and sport management, where I learned a lot more around the complexities associated with the sports industry. Namely, how we often see athletes of color and women in athletics, but the barriers that need to be broken down to ensure success and amplify impact in that regard are so challenging. You flip that and think about the workplace side of the house, and it becomes even more challenging, particularly when we think about conversations for women navigating the sports industry on the behind the camera side and women continuing to navigate sports technology in general. And so I started my career, though, as a strategy consultant, which is literally just a fancy way of saying you create PowerPoints and Excel documents for people all day to tell them how much money they're going to lose. So you're proving to people things that they already knew. So I did that for a number of years with some oil and gas companies and telecommunications companies in Houston, Kansas City, and Oklahoma. Riveting work, I know. But I ultimately decided to leave for obvious reasons. And that's where I made my entry into the diversity and inclusion space. So I joined Google. So I worked at Google for a number of years as a leader in their diversity and inclusion practice in Austin, Texas, Mountain View, California, and Sao Paulo, Brazil, building out new approaches for women in technology and for the Black community and their entry into tech, primarily here in the States and a little bit down in Brazil. But from there, after doing the big company, big tech experience at Google and having quite an incredible time, I decided to make a shift because I wanted to gain exposure and experience working for a much smaller company in the nimble startup environment where I could actually learn, grow, develop, and build from the start my own approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I took on an opportunity in 2015 as the first ever head of diversity and inclusion for Snapchat. And so while I was there, I started as employee number 498 at Snap, built it to 3,200 by the time I left, installed their first employee resource groups or employee networks, built their first iteration of unconscious bias awareness training, their first approach to diversity representation data, and how to have big conversations around diversity education, as well as amplifying the role of women and communities of color in science, technology, engineering, and math. And then more specifically in working with the software engineering organization, did some partnership actually with my former employer over at Google with their teams who do work around girls who code, women who code, and then more specifically, how do we focus on advancing girls aged 13 to 18 into STEM education and ultimately careers in software. For anybody that's worked at a startup, you know that that was a grueling 4 years. It was a great time, but it was a lot. We took the company public in March 2017, expanded to 16 different international offices. So it was a huge endeavor and one that I'm so excited and proud to have participated in. But by the time we got to April 2018, I was a little bit exhausted from that. And right around that time had received an opportunity from Nike. And so joined Nike to lead up the strategy around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So building our new recruiting strategy, looking at inclusive hiring practices. And then ultimately, after 2.5 years there, about 5 weeks ago, was promoted into my current role, which I'm thrilled about, as our Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, building global practices and global opportunities for our teams and talent to find some congruence between how we position Serena, Colin Kaepernick, LeBron, Simone externally to the experiences of our teams internally. And we do that through representation, education, professional development, and creating a sense of community. And in terms of some of the innovative work that Nike's doing right now, obviously product innovation and creating inspiration for the athletes around us is the crux of what we do. It's our mission after all. And so we're doing a lot of great work to continue to ensure that we are better serving athletes. And you'll notice we position that with an asterisk. It's this idea that if you have a body, you're an athlete, which means albeit an individual's differing ability, where they come from, what their experience is, what their gender identity, gender expression is, what their sexual orientation is, etc. You are an athlete, which means we have an obligation to provide resources, access, and opportunity. So all of our innovation centers around that. So from helping athletes break the 2-hour mark at a marathon to creating the Fly East product so that individuals with all abilities can continue to engage in sport, to taking powerful stances on topics like Black Lives Matter, immigration, as well as women or transgender identified individuals in sports in states like Connecticut and Kentucky. We're committed to serving athletes.
Awesome. Yes, the emphasis on diversity is number one. It's key. So what has your journey taught you about sports tech as a broad field?
We need more diversity. That's the short story. Sports technology is an environment that for so long has been built on the perspectives of a few. It can arguably be called an oligarchy. It's a few folks that believe and have set the stage or standard for how things need to exist and how things need to be developed. And you see this come to life when you look at representation on boards. And you see boards that are typically largely all cisgendered straight white men. You don't have women's voices in the conversations. You don't have queer identified voices in the conversation. You don't have Black voices in the conversation. And so that monolith of culture and of experience, it's allowed sports tech to be successful, we think. However, it has not allowed sports tech to reach its highest potential. And that's the essence of everything that we do. If we're going to truly unleash human potential of each and every one of us and of the organizations and teams that we work with and build, it requires diversity to do that. Diversity is the prerequisite, meaning it comes before. It has to happen before innovation can happen. Homogenous teams or teams that all look alike, they are successful. They can be successful. However, if you do a direct comparison to the ability for a diverse team to do even better, they will and always do. And there's a lot of studies and research that validates that. And so one of the big learnings that I found from sports tech is there's a desire by so many people. The CEO of Zoom, and I know you had this experience this summer, Sydney, dying commitment to the work. And that's exactly what we need. We need more folks that are in positions of power to actually demonstrate that commitment to diversity, create a collective and an exhaustive approach to how we think about and how we have big diversity conversations. And that is where I think there's an area of opportunity for sports tech, is we have to provide education. So there's learning, engagement, and understanding, But then we also have to make these commitments and stick to them around how much money we're going to contribute as companies, around how many folks we're going to take on as interns or full-time employees, and then hold each other accountable to do great work in this space, which is only going to come when we start to be a little bit more transparent about what's worked and what hasn't.
Yep, absolutely. And what sports did you play when you were younger? And how did those experiences impact your work life today?
Yeah, so I've always had a big passion for sport. So I typically meddled mostly in the humanities. So I did speech and debate for a number of years. Some people say it's not a sport, but if you ever see the competitive nature, like in a tie, you might disagree with that. But in terms of physical sports and physical activity, I was a volleyball player for 8 years. So I played throughout high school and then a little bit of college. What position?
Middle, but I changed to right side
So
because
love it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was
no,
like 5'6", but I was the tallest in high school, which was sad.
no, I feel you. Let me tell you, I started as a libero, and then they realized, like, I'll just be candid with y'all on this call. Like, I'm a black man, which means I got hops. And so they realized I could jump a little bit. So then they put me as an outside hitter. And so that worked
Nice.
really well for 4 years. I loved it. And then when I moved out to LA, started playing beach a lot more. So that was a really, really good time. Really loved my experience playing volleyball. Played basketball in 5th grade. It kind of stopped in 5th grade. The participation trophy was great, but I was not very good at that. But my connection to sport is something that's been heightened. I will tell you, every single time Serena or Naomi have a match, I'm watching. I watched Serena win this morning, watched Naomi win last night. I love tennis. Played tennis for a little bit in college. And for me, it's this idea that sport has no boundaries. And that's really where Nike's positioned ourselves. You've probably seen videos of kids in various countries around the world. They'll kick anything down the street and into a couple of goalposts. Soccer, football. We know that it has no boundaries. The equipment helps, the experiences help, but you know what? It's sport, it's play, it's fitness, it's fun, which means that it has a certain pervasive nature that is so powerful, because that means no matter what you look like, where you came from, what your experience is, what you identify as, you can play sports. And that's the beautiful part about it. You take a look at a couple of winning teams previously, the Bulls in the 90s with Jordan and Pippen, the Rockets in the 90s with Drexler. These teams proved that they didn't care about what city you came from, how tall you were, mattered a little bit, but what college you came from. It was how did we mesh together as a team, and how did our manager or our coach help position us to craft excellence. And we begin to see what happened when the Bulls and the Rockets did incredibly successful during their periods.
Awesome. Yeah, those are some really great answers, especially it's super inspirational how you've been working on opening up some of these fields. It's also really great to meet you. I don't think we've been introduced before, but it's super great to meet you. I'm going to kind of take it a little bit more towards like the younger generation, seeing as that's predominantly who are on this call right now.
Yeah.
But for high school and college, what kind of classes and extracurriculars do you think really prepared you for where your journey has gone and how you knew what you wanted to do and like your career, all of those kinds of things?
Yeah. I love talking to this community and this population because there's just so much of an opportunity where I did certain things in high school and didn't understand the impact that it would have on me later in life. And now that I'm realizing that, it's so critical. Folks on the call, take at least one foreign language, preferably 2. I know at a lot of schools, it's educationally required, but give it your all. Learn that foreign language. Learning Spanish was the best thing that I could have ever done by the time I was in. When it was time to call upon somebody to go down to Brazil, no one in the Austin office at the time spoke Portuguese. A couple of us knew or understood Spanish, which the adjacency was good enough for me to be competitive for that opportunity. That's how I ended up in Brazil working for Google, is the opportunity of something that I started way back when I was a high school freshman. I think I actually started in 8th grade, but a high school freshman, of actually seeking to understand the language that much more. The experience that provides is so, so critical. So definitely do that. The second piece, take the speech class. I know it may not seem fun. Take speech and debate, take communications. And then when you get into college, take the additional introduction to public speaking coursework. My experience in public speaking and general communication and intercultural and verbal communication has been The one factor that I can tell you easily identifiable has been the reason that I have gotten jobs in different industries, have been able to explore different career opportunities, and quite frankly, have been able to travel the world to over 20 different countries, 46 different US states, 6 different continents, is because of that exposure and experience. When you learn about the ability to communicate your ideas in a clear and succinct manner, and then you're constantly practicing those skills over time, it is so incredibly significant. 3, have fun. I mean that. High school only happens for you one time. College only happens for you one time. Have fun. The coursework will be there. It's important that you challenge yourself, that you take the opportunity, but have fun. What that means, take some time out to play sports with your friends. Take the extra days away to spend time with your family during holidays. Take the difficult courses, pass, fail, just because you want to take them. I will tell you, my most enriching experiences during college, I took a class on the history of adoption. And I literally studied the life and times of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. But I will tell you, it was to date the most fascinating course that I've ever taken, because you begin to understand connections to big parts of history that you never knew had a connection to conceptual adoption. Things like Josephine Baker, Jim Jones, the famous revolutionary leader, as some call him, and so many others. Their connection to adoption is so strong and so powerful. I took a class on astronomy. I will never use that, ever. However, it was so inspiring and so engaging in the moment that I can say I know random facts, which are useful on like Jeopardy or Cash Cab, but it was so much fun in the moment, because I knew that there will never come another time in my life as I am subsumed and at times consumed by conversations on diversity, equity, and inclusion. There will never be a time in my life where I will take an astronomy class. And so takes the coursework that I told you about previously. I think learning a foreign language and becoming an expert communicator are critical no matter what job you will take on, albeit what industry you'll work in, etc. So do those, but also remember, have fun and spend some time doing things that you never in your wildest dreams would not have done. A couple other things I did in undergrad that I thought were cool. I love dance. So when we talk about sports and athletics too, I was a dancer. And so, spent a good amount of time learning salsa, samba, merengue on the more Latin ballroom style dances. But I also did Bhangra for 4 years. It's something no one knows about me. It's something that my teams at work are like, what? And then, we'll do some cultural excursions and they're like, wow, okay, that's really cool. But it's one of those things that, again, you never know when you'll have those opportunities in life ever again. And college just represents such a safe, secured, and protected bubble, as does high school, for you to just go out, explore, and be your true self. So take full advantage of that.
That's like really amazing advice, especially because I feel like a lot of people my age are probably a little bit more short-sighted about what they want to do. So we're not thinking like a little bit more long-term when we choose like what we want to pursue or like what kind of clubs or things we're doing. And I think that's really important. Like you said, that you like only have the opportunity once. It's really important to take it. So yeah, that's some really great advice.
Yeah, like tactically for the team, like pick 1 or 2 clubs that you're going to stick with all 4 years of high school if you're like a freshman. And then if you're a sophomore, do the same thing. 1 or 2 clubs you're going to stick with for a long period of time that will look good on your college application. If you're in college, pick 1 or 2 clubs that will look good as you look for job applications. Besides that, let that 3rd, 4th, and 5th club be whatever you want to do. By the time you get to number 3, I swear to you, the admissions directors don't care. They can tell how well-rounded you are and how well you stick with things based on the first 2. This is coming from somebody who, honestly, I kid you not, has evaluated over 10,000 college applications for students and essays, and has read more than 100,000 resumes in my career experience as a recruiter. I can tell you we only spend 10 seconds on every resume or application. And so don't think about it. Are you really going to dedicate and invest 4 years of your life into an application or a resume that someone is only going to look at for 10 seconds to make a decision on? It better be something that you enjoy doing over time. So think long and hard about that. And same, I don't know if there's any parents watching. Hopefully parents will watch this recording a little later. Don't force your children to do things they don't want to do in high school. Let them find different sports, different activities, different extracurriculars that they are passionate about and that they are interested in. That carries through to their success in high school, college, and ultimately in the workplace.
Yeah. I think kind of along the same lines as doing what inspires you when you're in high school and college. How do you deal with like an uninspiring coach or a teacher? taking charge of your own interests, I guess, at like this kind of age where you might not have all the resources?
I think that that's a really great question. So I think that there's always an opportunity for you to go out above and beyond your teacher, your coach, or your mentor. So I'll start with teachers. I had some absolutely incredible teachers throughout my education career and educational experience. I also had some really bad teachers and professors throughout my career and experience. I've always found a balance in them. I got really close to the ones that were good teachers, that were committed to my education, that would be the ones writing my letters of recommendation. And I literally still, and I won't reveal my age, but I'm older. I still maintain a good relationship in my older years with those folks from high school. I still connect with one of my teachers from middle school, actually, Lisa Brent. She's a good friend of mine. It's weird because we're Facebook friends now, so there's that whole duality. But anyway, we remain really connected. And it's because I saw the investment that she made in me way back in 8th grade science that was really positive and really powerful. And so latch on to those really good teachers. If you have teachers, though, that are uninspiring, unmotivating, and particularly if it's a subject that you're interested in, use your extra time, use your free time that you might have outside of school to study on your own, learn more, and understand. And you'll learn this when you get into the workforce. There are mentors that are at your company, and there are mentors far beyond your company. I'm a mentor to several people who don't work at Nike. I have mentors myself who don't work at Nike. And so similarly in educational environments, understand that high school, college, coaches, etc., that's your current locus of control. And while they're really good, expand your horizons beyond that. Find mentors, find coaches, find teachers, etc., who aren't only in that space so that you can expand and know more and know differently. And so if your parents have the means, for example, have them think about hiring an outside tutor or an outside instructor as well. That way you're getting a more well-rounded point of view, whether it's an outside instructor for softball or an outside teacher for mathematics. It will continue to expand your horizon.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. I guess that's kind of how I found Women's Sports Tech, because I was at my company and looking for just a community of mentors, and I found Mary Lou, but that just really was a nice outlet to have.
Yep.
Awesome.
I think especially, I guess, at this kind of age where we're figuring things out, I think girls tend to be a little bit more hesitant to kind of go out and really accept these opportunities. And it's just like self-confidence. And I think you're really right about that, like really going outside of your comfort zone and trying to figure out kind of what you can explore. And then I think along those same lines, like I said, of like following what you inspire, trying to kind of figure out what you want to do. What are some goals that you think young girls, and especially girls of color, looking to go into this field should really set for themselves as of now?
Yeah, I'll talk about goals in just a second. I'll start and address the whole crowd just with this. Young ladies, you are amazing, you are special, and you are powerful beyond your own wildest dreams. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you're incapable of anything. Remember that. When people try to push you away from doing something, it's because they fear that you might enter that space and be better than them. Every single time. Especially the women of color on the call. Understand that because you find yourself at that intersection of being both a marginalized gender community and a marginalized racial community, people will not desire to see you succeed. But even amidst all that failure, if you can remember one thing from this conversation today, know that you at the very least have one person who is doing something truly special at a company, Nike, who is there to support you, who is in your corner, who is in your background always. Anytime that you are doubtful on if a class is difficult, if you shouldn't apply for a scholarship, if you shouldn't apply for a certain school, do it. Do it. Overcome that doubt. The worst that could happen is they say no. I have been turned down from so many jobs. You would have no idea. So many jobs, so many career opportunities for a variety of different reasons. A variety of different reasons. Some not qualified, some said I was too young. And it's when you find your niche, it's when you find what works, that you really, truly succeed. So don't let anybody, especially men, I'm gonna just tell you directly, don't let anybody tell you that something is impossible for you to do. You are the only one that can dictate what your limits are to the greatness that you have and can succeed, both in education and in professional environments. So remember that. In terms of goals that you would look to set for yourself, there's a couple of things. One, start creating a plan for yourself. And it's okay if you miss the mark, that doesn't matter. Figure out what it is that you want to do in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. If you're in college, that will get you all the way to goal setting by the time you're in college. If you're in college already, that'll get you to goal setting by the time you get to your first job or your first gig, or potentially even graduate school. But do the 1, 3, 5. That's how I plan my life, you all. Every time I have a big change in life, for example, this new recent promotion, I created the journey path. I said, here's what I need to accomplish in this role and in my personal life in the next 1 year. Here's what I need to accomplish in 3 years, and here's what I need to accomplish in 5 years. And these goals are incredibly ambitious. When I did it 2 years ago, when I got my initial promotion at Nike and looked at it now, oh God, I think I hit maybe 50% of those. But that's okay, because you're intentionally setting them as ambitious goals so that you can reach harder and try even more for them, knowing that you'll still land in a space of greatness. So don't sell yourself short too as you set those goals. Number 2, communicate those goals. Certain things I know you might not want to tell your parents, certain things you might not want to tell your friends. Communicate your goals though. It's important that people know about it, because they'll hold you accountable. Here's an example. I have such an affinity for children's literature. I always have. Huge fan of Disney, huge fan of Nickelodeon. So children's media, children's literature, definitely top of mind for me. And so right when the COVID-19 navigation first began, I began writing a children's book series. And I communicated this to a couple of my friends. And they literally asked me about it every week. And I'll tell y'all candidly, I haven't worked on it in about 3 months because work got hard. But they still ask me about it every week. And that's exactly what I need. I need those folks to hold me accountable because they care about me and they want to see me succeed and be great in that. So communicate those goals. That way people around you can be part of your success and part of that lift of growing. And then number 3, make it a goal to find somebody who you look up to, follow their career path, and ask them for time. I will tell you, people have time for what they want. And that's part of why I stepped into the board seat for Women in Sports Tech, is even amidst all of the challenges and hours that my job takes up. And I tell Mary Lou and Gretchen and team this all the time, I'm not always as available as I wish I could be as a board member. But for moments like this and moments when it counts and moments where I know I need to be there to lend my voice, I'm there. Because you have to recognize your successes and the work and impact that you have done is only as good enough as the benefit that others can see and receive from it. And so, Shivi, to see the work that you're doing and starting this group or population, congratulations. It's fantastic. It is fantastic. I could have only wished to do something like this in high school and have the drive and gumption, etc., that you have. Like, I can tell you will be a global leader because of your connection in doing this. Sydney, previous conversations we've had together, I know your background. Seeing the work you're doing to get your master's in sport management, you're going to go so far in this industry, and y'all are game changers in what is truly possible here. And so when we talk about this concept of next gen, understand that you all may be the next generation, but there's going to be another group coming right after you that's going to need to hear and see your exact same example. And then you're going to be on the hook for doing moments, just like I'm doing right now, to share your experience.
Incredible. Yeah, we're all so thankful to be surrounded like leaders by yourself. It's just, really, really motivating. And for me to be with Sydney and Shivi, like they're always pushing the boundaries and setting such an awesome example for that next generation. Well, also, I think we have a few more minutes. I just have one more question kind of on the advice side of things, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. I think my last question would be, what's the biggest advice you have for young women for building their confidence? Like, is there any way to stay consistent with that? Because that's something I personally struggle with too. I feel like I'll be super confident one day and then it'll go down. It's just a bumpy road sometimes.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. Confidence isn't easy. And part of what shakes our confidence is this inability or us questioning ourselves on if we can actually do it and if we can succeed. And oftentimes what's getting in the way is we're looking at others. We're looking at others. And the way to do that, and I struggled with confidence previously as well. Here's what I did to get over it. I can only compare myself to myself yesterday. And what am I doing to be better than the Jarvis that was at the workplace yesterday? And you think about different situations that you find yourselves in, and I always look to how can I handle situations in the future? One of the keys to gaining confidence is to be far more reflective on moments in time. For example, 2 weeks ago, I had a little run-in with a colleague, and I'm like, wow, I don't think I handled that as well as I could have. And so knowing that we had a follow-up one-on-one this week, it was on Tuesday, I thought long and hard on how do I handle this again? How do I build up the confidence to be able to enter this conversation in the right way? That level of self-reflection was so powerful that when I entered yesterday, I said, hey, this didn't sit well with me. The way that you showed up, your mode of expression, etc., did not sit well or connect with me. We ended up learning it was an impasse, miscommunication, etc. We're back on great terms. We're launching a really great project tomorrow for the company. And so as you think about your personal confidence, avoid this idea of competing with others. You will never be on the same path or position as others. And that's where equity comes into place. You don't have the resources that they have, for better or for worse. You know, you may have more resources than they do, financially or otherwise. You may have less resources than they do. That's out of your control. You may not have the same background or experiences. There may be barriers to entry that they don't have or that you do have. And so you can only modulate your own confidence based on yourself. A couple of like more tactical things to do is journal. Journaling is really helpful. You know, I tell people as a speech and debate kid for 13 years, I spent way too much time talking to myself in a mirror or recording myself. And with that, you become very hypercritical of yourself. I hate my voice. But what you learn from that is you start to build a level of confidence about self where self-realization, self-naturalization, all of those become the topics of the day. And so specifically in talking to the young women on the call, avoid competing with others. And I will tell you, it is a construct that men have placed on women for years. Men have placed a construct point of view on women of the idea of competing with one another, whether it's competing for jobs, pageants, can't stand them. Sorry, I know this is recorded. I'll say it again. Pageants can't stand them because it reifies this point of view of a male construct of the idea that women have to compete with each other to be successful. We cannot allow that to continue, and we cannot allow that to enter this space and this conversation. We have to form groups and populations that we ride and we roll together, and we're committed to each other's development. Creating that level of confidence in a group setting or a group environment certainly translates to the individual and allows you to succeed. Don't let anyone ever pit you or put you against anyone else.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, always being competing against yourself.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll get into the questions that were just submitted. First one is, how should someone deal with sexism in the workplace or in the classroom?
Yeah, it's not easy. Thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it. That's a topic you got to tackle head on. Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia. We're over this idea of a training or an education module because at the end of the day, the behavior can't be tolerated. And so you got to tackle it head on. You got to address the offender in the moment. You got to let them know why their actions are inappropriate. You got to let them know why and how we should proceed from this topic. And I always tell people, particularly in the workplace, carry a friend, carry a partner in the conversation with you. And so in the workplace, that might be your employee relations partner. It might be your human resources partner, but take someone into the conversation with you. So that's called escalation. Escalate that topic. If it's in the classroom, if it is your teacher, escalate to the assistant principal, escalate to the principal. If it is a classmate, escalate to the teacher, escalate to the dean, because it absolutely cannot and should not be tolerated. We're in an environment now where for at least the last 30 plus years with advancements and legislation and judicial rulings around things like Title VII and Title IX, where people can't say that they didn't know. They just can't. And so ignorance is no longer a concept that excuses people's behavior. And so we have to start getting even more comfortable facing those topics head on. And this is where having a strong mentor can come into place too, because you can ideally tap that mentor as well if you're unclear or unsure on how to address that specifically. And so to the individual that asked that question, if you need even more guidance or more specific tactics on how to handle that, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, which is my first and last name, and we can set up some time to talk a little bit more about it.
Awesome. Our next question is, how did you know what you wanted to pursue, and what experiences helped you along the way?
That's a great question. And honestly, I did not know what I wanted to pursue. Just to be honest, like if you would have caught me in 8th grade, I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. 9th grade, I was going to be a mortician. Don't ask. And then by the time we got to like junior year of high school, I was going to be a lawyer. And I was going to be a lawyer all through junior year of college. And my goal, Stanford Law School, ready to go, had done the LSAT prep work and everything, got my summer internship with Deloitte, and quickly realized, my goodness, it's not the law that I actually want to practice. It is the approaches that I thought or the stylized representation of what law was that I wanted to get after. And so I knew I could actually achieve that through consulting. And so that's ultimately how I landed in a big consulting gig. And then, I never knew that I wanted to be a diversity and inclusion practitioner. I didn't even see it as an opportunity. And what's more, even before this job, I never wanted to be a recruiter, ever. I thought they were the laziest people in the world until I had to do the job. And I learned that it's actually a very difficult job. It is a very time-consuming job. It is a very relational job. Quite frankly, it was everything I was good at in college and in my job at Deloitte. It was the job that I was meant to do and the job that I was meant to take on. And so I learned that everything that I thought was all wrong. And so the way that we then, focus that to be a little bit more kind of sage advice is I want you all to know that you may have a career path in mind. Let the journey take full. It's kind of like a Monopoly board. Sometimes you'll collect $200. Sometimes you might go to jail. Not literally. Or your job or workplace may feel like it at times. And so just roll with it. Roll with it. I never saw myself working in the technology industry. I never would have seen myself working at Google or Snapchat. And while I studied sport management, I thought that I would end up in the entertainment industry. That was where my heart was. And yet I ended up working in my dream job, at my dream company, which I never would have realized a couple of years ago that Nike would be that for me. Mm-hmm. And so make sure that you're taking those opportunities to let it kind of take you where it needs to go, and you'll always end up in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, I ended up, I was voted like one of the most quiet people in middle school, and then I actually got into sales, which I never thought would ever happen, but actually leverages my strengths. So it's just funny to see how the journey connects. But, excellent. Do we have any other questions? Or
I think that might have been it. I think we covered all of them. But I think we all just want to say thank you again for taking the time to talk to all these girls on this webinar and talk to us as well. And we really appreciate you sharing your journey with the entire WiST Next Gen community as well. So just thank you again. And everything you said was super, super inspirational for not only girls, but also girls of color and people who don't identify within some of like the rigid boundaries that a lot of areas of tech and sports are now opening up to. But I personally want to say that some of the stuff you said really resonated with me, so I wanted to thank you again for that. Just to reiterate, Jarvis is the Vice President of Global Diversity and Inclusion at Nike, and he's also a WiST board member. And yeah, thank you again.
Of course, thank you all so much. You continue to inspire me each and every day. Thrilled to have the opportunity to connect with this population. Really appreciate all that you all do. Hope you have a wonderful
Thank you so
week.
much, Jarvis.
All right, take care.
I feel like running a marathon. I'm super inspired.